Hello, future doctors. Greetings. Our topic for today is all about management theory with regards to decision making. Okay? So, decision making in management is very essential, very important because bad decision making can break a company. Okay, so if you are the manager, if you are the leader, you must use your critical thinking in order to decide, in order to reach a certain decision. Okay, and for you and for the team, for the company to achieve your goals. So let us begin. Introduction. Managers live and die by the decision where a record of good decisions can make a career. And then a string of poor decisions can mean being sidelined. Okay? Like what I said earlier, decision can make or break your career, can make or break your company if you are the manager. Even the best managers don't always make the right decisions. Okay? Is empowering. It gives them the permission to make the wrong decisions and to avoid beating oneself up because we are human and are unable to forecast the future. Now, let's begin by discussing a management theory, Theory 71, Townsend's rule of decision making, which is crowned as king. Rule number 1. Decisions should be taken at the lowest level possible in the organization. Don't pass decisions up the line that you have the authority to make. It will make you look indecisive, okay? So, if you are the manager in a company, for example, you belong in the middle management, if there are problems or predicament, okay, that you will face, it must be solved within your level. Do not pass it to your boss. Do not forward it to the high management or the CEO, because if you do that, your superiors will think that you are incompetent and they will look down on you as a manager, as the leader of your department, and so on and so forth. Delegate decisions that are below your pay grade to staff and monitor that they are dealt with. Okay? So, for example, another problem, another predicament is present, but such problem can be solved, okay, within your staff level. You delegate it and then monitor it, okay, in order for you to be effective, in order for you to be efficient as the manager. Rule number 2. There are only two types of decisions. Those that can be made quickly because they are cheap and easy to correct, and those that should only be taken after due consideration because they are expensive and difficult to correct. Okay? So this type of problems are what you call short-term problem and long-term problem. Okay? So, in a short-term problem, you must dealt with it swiftly, quickly, in order to solve any predicament. However, in a long-term problem, due consideration should be given. Okay? You must use your critical thinking. You must exhaust all your resources. Okay? Because a wrong decision can be expensive and difficult to correct. Have the confidence to take decisions that are cheap and easy to correct quickly and with minimal information. Delay taking decisions that are expensive and difficult to correct until you have adequate but not complete data. Never take into account what has already been spent when making a decision, such as money has gone for good. Look only at future cash flows, okay? So, when making a decision, always think for the future, okay? You should bear in mind that what is happening in the present can be remedied, okay, by time, by resources, okay, by the use of your critical thinking as a manager. So always be positive, and if the situation or the problem calls for delegation, calls for sharing, you must do it as a manager. Rule number 3. All decisions are made on the basis of incomplete data. So either learn to live with this fact or get out of the game. While you can never have complete data when making a decision, you should subject the data you do have to critical evaluation. Okay? Sometimes if there are problems, if there are predicaments within the company, datas are limited. However, as the manager, as the leader, you must make use of everything that you have in order to solve or remedy the situation. As if the data has been affected by incorrect assumptions, wishful thinking, errors in calculation, over-optimistic projections of customer numbers, and cash flows, or an underestimation of risk. Okay? So as the manager, always use your critical thinking. Always investigate, gather data which are necessary in order to help you solve the predicament. Rule number 4. A good manager gets 1/3 of their decisions right, 1/3 wrong, and the other 1/3 would have turned out just as they did whatever decision was made. Always carry out a post-decision review. If you don't, you're missing a great opportunity to identify errors, weaknesses, and strengths in your decision-making process. Information which will help you make better decisions in the future. Okay? So as a manager, you should be open to constructive criticisms. Okay? Should have a feedback mechanism in order to know whether or not your decision is effective. Okay? At a given predicament. Now, let's go to another theory of decision making, the Eisenhower principle and the delegation of decisions, Theory 72. This type of model is used to identify the decisions you should take and those you should delegate. Okay, like what I said before, if a predicament, if a problem, okay, that you meet, if it can be solved in your level, you do it. Do not pass it to your boss. Or if the problem is a technical one that needs the intervention of a technical person like your staff, then delegate it. Okay? What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. Now, who is President Dwight D. Eisenhower? He was the supreme commander of Allied forces during World War II and was in charge of the Allied invasion of Europe, or the D-Day. So he knew a thing or two about decision making, mostly used for time management, but it is used here to remind that not all decisions are of equal importance. Okay? So as a manager, as a leader, you must know the priority. Okay? You must prioritize what is urgent, what is essential, what is needed to be done. Okay? And then other problems can be solved later, okay, by the use of your critical thinking, by studying it, by investigating it, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the model utilized by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. In this diagram, you can see the Eisenhower decision matrix. Okay, so the elements of this matrix is the important and not important problem. Okay, and what to do if it is urgent or not urgent. So if it is urgent and important, do it now. If it is important but not urgent, decide. Schedule a time to do it, okay? Either to you study the situation first, okay? If it is urgent but not important, you delegate. Who can do it for you? But if it is not urgent and not important, you delete it, okay? Eliminate it. So this is the matrix, the diagram of the Eisenhower decision. Decisions should be made at the lowest level possible, and staff should not be allowed to push them up the line. Be assertive and refuse to deal with decisions that others should make. Okay? So, if you are the manager which is faced with predicaments or decisions that you have to make, solve it in your level. However, if it needs to be delegated, give it to your staff that has the knowledge and expertise to do it. Okay? What is important is you make the necessary step in order to solve the problem. Now, let's go to another theory about decision making. Theory 73, the McNamara fallacy, the vital information that decision makers ignore. A little background. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, developed what has come to be known as the McNamara fallacy. It was his attempt to understand why, for much of the war, America and its politicians thought that they were winning. He paid attention to the measurable facts like the capture of Viet Cong. No attention was paid to the soft data such as enemy morale. So this is the McNamara fallacy steps. Measure what can easily be measured. Next, disregard what can't be easily measured or give it an arbitrary quantitative value. Okay? So it means don't give it any attention. Third, presume what can't be measured easily isn't important. Okay? So if the situation can be measured, don't give it any importance. And then fourth, say what can't be measured easily doesn't exist. Okay? If a problem, if a predicament can't be measured, consider it non-existent. Now, this is the step of the model. First, acknowledge the scientific management. Next, include qualitative data. After that include quantitative data. When data are already considered, brainstorming session to identify non-financial costs and benefits. After that, collect additional data from other stakeholders. And then use cost-benefit analysis for allocation of value to each non-quantifiable assets. Lastly, exception of data without understanding how calculation of it was done should be avoided. Another management theory with regards to decision making is the offshoring core functions, Theory 74. Used when you wish to move a substantial part of your core business overseas for strategic reasons. Here are the steps of this model. Step 1. Improved economy, increased efficiency, access to a more productive workforce. And then become international, reduction in cost base. Lastly, access to new markets. Step 2 is identify potential overseas destinations and assess their sustainability for partnership working. Step 3, concerned with confirming which products you will offshore. And then the last step involves a meticulous assessment of the case for moving to each country. Next theory about decision making is Theory 75, the Kim and Moborn's Blue Ocean Strategy. This is used to escape from tired, overcrowded old markets and find a new ocean to play, or new markets or new environment. Now, this theory is illustrated by differentiating red ocean strategy and blue ocean strategy. So what is red ocean strategy? Beating competitors, max pre-existing demand, believes in trade-off between value and cost, and then new technology. Okay, and red ocean strategy, it contemplates competition, okay, getting things done, aggressiveness. On the other hand, blue ocean strategy contemplates free of competitors, seeks to identify, create, exploit new demand, does not believe in trade-off between value and cost, aligns the organization's culture, strategy, processes, activities around the idea of product differentiation and low cost. Okay? So the aim of blue ocean strategy is stability. Okay? It is not aggressive. Okay? What he wants as a manager is a market free from competition. Now, how to use this theory? Avoid high-risk areas. Look at the broad spectrum. And then don't spend time thinking about existing demand. Next, focus on how you can build a strong business model which will ensure long-term profit. And then plan the implementation of the strategy and use the new approach to motivate and inspire staff and play to their expertise. Do not allow the current success of your competitors to influence your thinking. Another theory in decision making is Theory 76, discontinued cash flow, or the DCF. It is used when comparing future cash flows as to which option provides the greatest return at today's prices. So, how is this model illustrated? Inflation erodes the value of money over time. The value of $1,000 today is greater than in 3 years, by which time inflation will have reduced its purchasing power. So most companies will also have a hurdle rate of return, which is the minimum annual return required from all investments. DCF is a key financial tool when evaluating individual or competing investments. Now, how to use this model? Normally, DCF will be calculated by your accountant. They will use the following information in their calculations: the cost of the investment, details of how you have estimated future cash flows, details of the minimum hurdle rate of the return. Any DCF calculation contains a number of difficult to quantify variables. This has implications for the level of accuracy that can be achieved. Where one or more projects are competing for limited resources, DCF provides a means of comparing disparate proposals. Now, a final word on strategic management theories. Why the theory of Townsend was chosen as king? Okay? Because it contemplates managers are time poor, and the advice given by Eisenhower on which decisions managers should delegate and where they should concentrate their energies was a strong contender for being crowned as king. Offer all managers reassurance by establishing realistic levels of performance and have proved to be effective in practice. However, settled on Townsend's rule of decision-making because they cover several important aspects of decision-making, are easy to understand and apply. Okay? So, the principles, the doctrines involved in the theory of Townsend is easily understandable. That is the reason why it is chosen as king. Okay? In contrast with other strategic management theories. Now, let me read to you a quote from Jose and Harris. Waiting hurts, forgetting hurts, but not knowing which decision to take can sometimes be the most painful. Okay? So, in this quote, you can see that decision is very crucial. Okay? Decision-making skill is important if you are the manager of the company or the leader in your community. Now, let's go to another concept in management: how to manage change. Introduction. Change is a long drawn-out process that can't be forced on people. Rush it and you'll pay a hefty price. Change is often uncomfortable and new as an experience for every human being. Okay? So different human being, different persons respond differently to change. All change evokes the emotions of fear and panic as well as of excitement and anticipation. Everyone perceives change differently. People also differ in their ability to face the unknown and deal with the uncertainty that change brings. This section will help you manage a change process and give you a greater understanding of the problems that people have at different stages in the process and some useful ideas to help you manage people under stress. So the first theory with respect to change, Theory 55 or the Kubler-Ross's change cycle. So as you can see at the left side of the slide, this is the process of the Kubler-Ross's change cycle. Okay? Denial, and then it moves to anger, and then bargaining. After that, depression or whining. And lastly is the acceptance. Okay? So we will discuss that in depth in the following slides. How to utilize this model? First, discuss the proposed change with staff as early as possible. Okay? So the changes you want to make must be discussed to the employees, to the staff at the earliest possible opportunity. Remember, change may be exciting for you, but for many, it's terrifying. Okay? So, it depends upon the perception of a person. Remember, people move through the change cycle at different speeds. Communicate with staff every which way you can, okay? Keep an open communication with your staff, okay? Appoint change champions, okay? From frontline staff, they can respond to queries instantaneously, stop rumors and misinformation from spreading, and act as a link between you and the front line. Allow staff opportunities to discuss their fears and concerns openly and provide all staff with training as early as possible. Now, let's move on to another theory, the Johnson's 3 rules of project management. Rule number 1. The number of people employed on the project must be kept to the minimum, okay? So your staff should be limited in numbers. The more the people, the more complex communication and control becomes. Next is rule number 2. Meetings must be kept to a minimum. Johnson suggests a weekly team meeting to review progress and consider if any changes to the project are required, and a monthly meeting between the project manager and project sponsors. Further meetings, he argued, were counterproductive and increased administrative work. Okay? Rule number 3, only 2 regular reports should be produced. Weekly, the project team should receive a report detailing progress to date against plan. And then monthly, the sponsors should receive a copy of the most up-to-date progress report and a detailed project finance report. Kelly Johnson famously devised 14 rules and practices for project work at the aircraft manufacturers Lockheed Martin. Many of these related to the working practices of the company, but contained within the list were 3 rules that have come to be seen as essential to the effective implementation of any change project in the public or private sector. Okay? So, how do you utilize this model? First, keep your team small and manageable. This will aid communication and clarity of purpose within the group, in addition to team spirit. And group identity are established more quickly in small teams. Next, once the project is up and running and it looks like it's going to be a success, You'll be amazed on how many glory hunters want to jump on the bandwagon. Repel all borders. And then hold a single short progress meeting with the project team each Friday afternoon or Monday morning. Use the meeting to monitor progress against plan and to prioritize the next week's work. Now, let's move to another theory, Theory 57, or the Lewin's force field analysis. Okay? So, this theory contemplates about change issue. Okay? Forces driving change and the forces resisting change. Okay? Whether there is change or no change. How do you utilize this model? Assemble a team of around 4 or 5 people to help you identify the drivers for change and the resistors to change. Don't be fazed if the same issue is considered by some as a driver and by others as a resistor. This will be down to individual perspective. Take an A3 sheet of paper. Describe the change proposed and record this in a box, top center of the sheet. From the bottom of the box, draw a line down the middle of the page. List the drivers for change in the left-hand column and the resistors to change in the right-hand column. You must use a SWOT and or PEST analysis for this. And then score each force. For example, assign a score of 1 as weak to 10 as strong to each force or resistor. For added visual effect, draw horizontal arrows for each force or resistor towards the center line. The bolder the arrow, the greater the force. Another theory in management with regards to decision making is Theory 58, or Cutter's 8-step approach to change. Okay? So first, establish a sense of urgency. Identify the competitive realities facing the organization. Second, form essential coalitions. Assemble a group with enough power to implement the change. Third, develop a vision for change. Link change to an overall vision that people can identify with. Next, communicate the vision. Talk about the vision frequently and enthusiastically with staff. Next, remove obstacles. Change any systems or structures that undermine the vision. Next, generate short-term wins. Nothing motivates better than success. Next, build on wins. Quick wins are important, but always remain focused on the long term. And then embed changes into the organization's culture. How to use this model? First, use the 7-stage approach as a valuable overview of the stages that you need to go through if you are to produce comprehensive and well thought out plan. Different writers define the terms aims, goals, and objectives differently, and others use the terms interchangeably. Always make a certain that in any conversation or meeting, you have everyone shares a common set of definition. Okay? So make sure that all stakeholders, all persons involved has the same understanding. Identify which planning approach your organization favors, top-down or bottom-up. Based on this, identify the role management expects you to play. Whatever your role, use one or two trusted staff to help you provide information or implement the plan. Another theory, Theory 59, or Moscantor and Change Masters. This is crowned as Queen. Rosabeth Moscantor uses the term change masters to describe managers who are at the forefront of change within their organizations and suggests that they all share the same 7 abilities. Okay? So, Moscantor's change masters are the following: work through teams, persist and persevere, make everyone a hero, tune into the environment, use kaleidoscope thinking, communicate a clear vision, and then build coalitions. Moscantor and change masters, effective change masters should focus on tasks where the emphasis is on result, not procedures. Organize people into teams with complete responsibility for their part of the end product. Create an atmosphere which emphasizes the value of the people involved. So how to use this model? Identify what changes need to be made and put together your change plan. Communicate a clear vision for change and use it to inspire others while building coalitions and enlisting the support of others. In a large project, organize people into sub-teams and give them complete responsibility for their part of the job. Another theory in decision making, Theory 60, or Egan's shadow side theory. Gerard Egan argues that different approaches need to be taken to manage different stakeholders within an organization. Egan describes working on the shadow side as a way of dealing with stakeholders who can't be dealt with using the organization's usual practices. Partners and allies need to be kept on side, whereas opponents and adversaries may have to be discredited or marginalized. So the elements of this model are the following: allies, fellow travelers, fence sitters, loose cannons, opponents, adversaries, bedfellows, the voiceless, and partners. These are characters to look out for in Egan's shadow side theory. How to use this model? Recognize the role that the organization's stakeholders play in the success of major change events. Recognize that this theory is concerned with organizational politics and power, and that without some political savvy, you'll get done by those who play the game better. Identify and get to know the key stakeholders in your organization. Do this even if you don't envisage making a change in the near future. Work out what power, influence, and interest each stakeholder has. Identify those stakeholders that might have an impact on your project. Rank them in terms of possible impact. The stakeholder with low power and low interest needn't take up too much of your time. It's those with high power and high interest that you have to engage with and develop as allies. Okay? So, you must take into consideration the status and power of the persons you are transacting. Another theory, Theory 61, Winston Churchill on the value of post-implementation review. Okay? So, this is the image of Sir Winston Churchill. the man who changed the world. So benefits of performing a post-implementation review or PIR. First, summarizes the project, explains background to project, focuses on key issues encountered, assess skills and knowledge of project team, compares what actually happened with plan, and then examines how well transition to users was managed. What to do? 40 years ago, the lack of the British industry to carry out post-implementation reviews of its decision was blamed for many of its failures. Still nowadays, many companies undertake little or no post-implement reviews of decisions taken or strategies implemented. Probably because they don't have time, case of self-preservation, don't want to be held accountable for poor decisions. Failing to review both their successes and failures, they are foregoing a truly wonderful learning opportunity. Always undertake a review. Okay? So if you are the manager or leader in your company, don't be afraid to be reviewed, to be audited, okay? To be criticized constructively, because it will help you, okay, to point out what is important and what to change. When reviewing a successful decision or strategy, consider the following. To what extent was the success due to unanticipated outside factors? Would the decision have been a failure without these external factors? Why didn't I identify these external factors in my decision strategy making process? Did I maximize the benefits of these unexpected factors, or was I slow to react to them? How can I improve my data collection to minimize the chances that I miss similar information in the future? What approaches, ideas, and lessons, best practice, can I take from this successful decision strategy and apply in the future and share with my colleagues? So the pictures, the images you see are the proponents, okay, the authors of different management theories with regards to decision making, okay? So the lady in pink is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and then the man in suit, Kelly Johnson. Again, the man with eyeglasses, Kurt Lewins. John Cutter, the man in green. The lady, the blonde lady is Rosabeth Moss Cantor. And then the person with white hair is Gerard Egan. Okay? So these are the visionaries. These are the founders, okay, of the theories of management with regards to decision making. So for now, that ends our presentation, our discussion with different management theories with regards to decision making. Some concepts are just matters of reading, guys, okay? So if you have any clarifications, any questions, do not hesitate to message me, okay? Ask me. For now, that's all. Thank you and God bless us all.